Happy December 1st, everybody. Hope everyone is having a wonderful time here as we prepare for Christmas and Hanukkah. I had a little bit of time tonight, so I figured I'd jump on, say hi, do a little bit of live here. If anybody wants to shoot the poo while I do a little bit of work. Actually, I'm just listing magic cards on eBay at the moment. I got too many and I want to get rid of them. So, if anybody wants to say hi, come say hi. If you don't want to say hi, I'm just going to sit here awkwardly doing work stuff. Did want to give a quick shout out to Mr. Carl Meadows for winning the Zombie Book of the Month Club for December, which is a great month to win it on, right for the holiday here. He got the support of a whole bunch of y'all in the votes. Dean, I am not buying you shit on eBay. I am selling things on eBay because I have too many things. And we need more money because life is insanely expensive right now. What do you need parts for? Are you building something? I still have your shirt, by the way, that you sent me. I wore it the other day. Anyway, so Carl got a whole bunch of your support, and he took the votes in a runaway. I think he got 2 or 3 to 1. I think it was Piperbrook, maybe. I forget who. Anyway, it was really nice to see everyone turn up for him and give him the vote so he could get some more visibility in that group and hopefully turn a whole bunch of people onto Lockie's story. And it's great timing because we just released the boxed set and we're working on book 4 right now. And it would be really great to get people involved. So early onset dementia, so I don't remember giving you anything. Yeah, you owe me money. Do you remember that? Probably not. But just send me some money. I swear. Promise. Is the dementia from your earlier brain issues? Hey, Raz. San Diego. I like San Diego. Wouldn't want to live there, but I like it. Drowned. Just drowned. Cool. In the dark. Sure, why not? How's the left coast? Raz. I did send you money. You've sent me a lot of money over the years. Relatively speaking. High tide. Riptide. Want to see a New Englander cry. It's 60 degrees here right now. It was 50 here today, so not too many tears. We are having very strange weather. We have like it's just up and down and back and forth, really inconsistent, even for this time of year. Inconsistent, which is Weird. We also haven't really had snow. We had like maybe an inch one day this week, an inch of snow, and then it turned to rain, and which turns everything to slush, which is miserable because then you like no matter where you walk, you're just like blorp blorp blorp, and you can't wear like sneakers at all because if you step in slush, that just completely soaks your foot. Like imagine the world just being covered in slushy or an icy. Like that's what it's like. It's literally just that. And you can't really play in it that much for the kids because it soaks you. So they went out sledding in it and lasted for about 20 minutes before they were literally just popsicles. Rash-inducing weather. Queensland, Australia. What the hell are you doing in Australia? Who wants to go to Australia? Criminals. Cold. Two. Note. Yeah, probably not. So that's sorted. You live in Australia. Really? Are you sure? Is it dementia you're worried about again? Crab. It's 95. Yeah, that's hot as balls. I'm all set. Thanks. Although, let's be honest, it comes down to humidity here for us. Because, 95 and not too terribly humid is not too bad. But, 65 and humid is atrocious. And obviously 95 and humid is punishing. %, humidity. Yeah, that's disgusting. You can keep it all set with that. Oh, cool. Nice. You go outside, swim in the street. Yeah, we've had days like that. It's disgusting. You just sweat and can't cool off. I saw this really interesting article where they're talking about how heat and humidity are, kind of reaching pretty atrocious levels. And there's I forget what they call it, but there's a point where it becomes hot enough that you constantly sweat and humid enough that the sweat does not evaporate, and you're just kind of stuck in this situation where you cannot cool off naturally. You must be cooled off by air conditioning or swimming or whatever. And it's this 0 point where humidity and temperature intersect. And they were saying that if the climate keeps changing at the rate that it's at, huge portions of the world in the warmer climate areas are going to be at that point. And a lot of these areas are, the lower income, African regions, that kind of stuff. Those are all buck. They're a lot of people could die. It's going to be fucking awful. Great. Great. You're at that point already. Yeah. I'm a fat guy. I'm always at that point. Like, just being honest. Just being honest. Did I? Oh, it did. I did. Smart. But can't type tonight. I also came down to into the basement here to but I'm like 350 right now. It does ruin crops, and it's so many things cannot survive. Try as I might, I keep getting stuck on my weight at about 350. But I've been maintaining 350 for a while and not working too hard at it, which means it's time to push again and like actually take care of myself a little bit better. Better kids. Better kids. Unlimited $1. Nobody wants that for $1. Take care, Dean. Try and stay cool down there. Hey, Anthony. The reason why I was just giving you hearts and thumbs up in our chat, by the way, was because I was doing a live and I didn't feel like typing any more than I already was. So suck it. Living artifact. Congratulations on your event today, Anthony. It sounds like it was a lot of fun. I'm glad you were able to get over the nervousness of it. Hey, John. Welcome to the chat, Mr. Patterson. For third alpha. I don't think that's unlimited. It looks like revised to me. Oh, yeah, that's pretty good. $15. If anybody jumps in and wants to ask a question about anything, feel free. I'm happy to answer anything. Life Force. Anthony, what were people buying today? You said you moved a bunch of stuff, which is really exciting. I'm really happy for you. Don't let my busyness illustrate otherwise. We've been dealing with a cold here at the house, and it's the weirdest cold. And like, it's miserable because my eldest got it, and she had like a little bit of the sniffles. Not too bad. No fever, no nausea, no throwing up, no nothing. And then for like 3 weeks, she's just been coughing and like coughing. Like dry at times and then like wet at times, and you know, coughs so much she nearly throws up, and then coughs so much that she can't breathe. And I think I sold it the other day. And then I got it. A lot of alt covers. Yeah, the alt covers are going to go first. One of each cover. That's cool. Those are the collectors you really want to get. People who go after both. There's $3. Hey, it's got one. Baron. Remember, you're selling comic books, and comic books are collectible. So rarities and such are good. How are they only 75 cents? It's a good card. That's awesome. That's really great. John just got over COVID. Ah, man, that sucks. COVID blows. We had it last year, like all of us in circuit. Just traded it back and forth. And then my wife got it twice. She had it first. And then the rest of the kids got it. And then I got it. And then as I was getting over it, she got it again. And the first time she had it, it was just like tired. She was just tired and just didn't feel great. But like not atrocious. And then the second time she got it, she got wrecked. Like she was down for days and felt messed up for weeks. But she recuperated. She's fine. But so strange that like it can just do that. Yeah, that is not unlimited. That is third. What am I doing with that sweat dog? Nobody wants after $1.50. You can't even read that. I'm sorry you got it, man. That sucks. Upsold them. 25. That's it. Oh, thanks, John. Appreciate it. AUD is the one that I am known for. Most of the people who have heard of my writing have found me through Adrian. Probably like 80%, 70% of the people. And then the rest have come from the other things I've written. And as I write more stuff that's not AUD, that number obviously goes up. But yeah. What's the third one look like? Like third. It's good. Good night, you sexy beast. Good night, Anthony. Get some rest. And John, thank you for giving it a shot. I really appreciate it. Everybody who tries the stuff really matters to me, so I really appreciate it. It's always a trip meeting new people who have read the writing and haven't read the writing. And it's really cool because I get to experience like the excitement of people getting into the story, you know, long after the fact, after I wrote the story, which is rejuvenating from a creative sense. I got the Grizzly Bears. Oh, that's the wrong button. Grizzly Bears. The cough. And I've had it for probably 3 or 4 days now. And man, I feel bad for my little one. And then tonight, because that's just the way it goes, my littlest started the cough, and it's a very distinct cough. And she's going to be miserable. But she fell asleep pretty good tonight. Hopefully she can sleep through the night, get some rest, and get ahead of it. My eldest, when she's sick, she does not sleep. She just like rolls around in bed miserable. And it's like, and then comes in and wakes us up and needs to be, you know, helped. Oh, cool. Well, John, if you're doing audiobooks of AUD and you want a freebie, send me a private message. I have a ton of promotional codes that I can give away on Audible. And the only thing I ask is you leave an honest review afterward. It's actually what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to ask you for an honest review. but I'm happy to give them out, especially if people leave me a review, because getting reviews is a challenge. I occasionally talk about the rate of sales to reviews, and it's something like less than 1% turn into reviews. So for every 100 books I sell, I get about 1 review. Long term, when the book first releases, usually like the first 100 sales are like, are my like hyper fans, the people who, you know, pre-order and then wait with bated breath and all that jazz. And they leave reviews at like a 50 or 60% rate. So I get my first like 50 reviews really quickly, and then it tapers off to like 1%. So I'm always begging for reviews. All of Roots comic. What's the other one? Time Spiral. Not that either. It's the old one. Rush. Yeah, 50 cents. No thanks. Yeah, just shoot me a PM. John, Mr. Dunham, good day. What are your thoughts on resellers selling your used books? I'm cool with it. I'm fine with that. You know, I make my money when I sell it the first time. And if people are making money selling it again, good for them. The only thing that like might bug me, and I don't think it's happened, is people buying a book, having me sign it in a generic way, and then intentionally reselling it just because they had me sign it. You know, people do that all the time to bigger authors. So I guess it's no big deal, but that would feel kind of shitty, honestly, that like somebody was just trying to, you know, make a buck off my autograph. But I mean, you know, I guess, you know, looking at it from the bright side is if I am popular enough that they think they can make a buck off my autograph, that's probably pretty cool. And I should be pretty happy about that. So, yeah, but resellers don't bug me at all. If I go to eBay and I look on eBay, people sell my used books, like, you know, books 1, 2, and 3, they bought them, or, you know, they're just selling sets or, you know, whatever. Sure, it's foil 4, it's good. And that doesn't bother me at all. And sometimes they're signed. What's really funny though is I personalize most of the stuff I sign. So like if Jonathan Dunham orders me a book, I sign it to John. So that's not to cock block the resale value, but to like make it cool, you know, because like if I get a signed book from somebody that I really like to read, it would be cool to have them make it personal, right? And rather than just scrawling their name. And R1. So I do that. I give them a personal kind of autograph thing. And if I saw those resold, that would be kind of shitty, because it feels like then they just don't like me anymore and they're not my friend. Megan, hey, how is everyone? Sorry to hear the kid's sick. Just went through it at home too. Yeah, Megan blows, sick of it. It's out there. Oh, Brian Keene. Brian's such a nice guy. I had the privilege of spending a little bit of time with him at a convention, and he's like just a really nice guy. Like legitimately fun and kind. One of my great regrets in life is when I did the Scares That Care show a couple of years in a row. I got invited to the like after party with like the authors, and this is before it turned into just AuthorCon, and it was like the names, like some serious authors there. And it was like, hey, we're going to go crack open a bottle of whiskey. You should come over. And I had the babies and I had to like help my wife put them down and I couldn't go. And, I'm glad I was able to help my wife and I was glad I was able to get the kids down. But like, it would have been so cool to be able to spend a couple of hours with those guys and gals and just bullshit. And, that would have been a cool room. Like serious authors, big names, movie deal authors. Pardon. But yeah, that was one of my great regrets. My hope is that if I can get back down to the show and they're still doing it, I'll be able to join in. Brian, just like to illustrate the kind of guy Brian is, he is like the author manager for Scares That Care. And the 2 years that I went, I brought my kids, my little girls. And the first year, my youngest was like, gosh, she was probably like 4 months old, 5 months old. And the second time I went was, a year later. So she was, a year and a half or so. And my other one's 2 years old and that, so 3. And the first year he came by my table at one point and was like, I got to tell you, man, that one of the best things about the show this year is just watching your kids, because my kids were super, super cute when they were that age, just like all giggles and chubby cheeks and like didn't scream or cry that much. And we're just like, just chill, awesome little kids. And he came back the year after and said the same thing too. It was really fun. Jonathan, can I talk about TV stuff? Yes, I can talk about TV stuff. What do you want to know about TV stuff? I've already answered this many times. I'm not sure. Well, I've talked about this several times. I'm not sure where you are in the conversation. And I don't want to over-explain, because nobody likes an over-explainer, and I over-explain things all the time. Pardon. John, are you able to talk about what you're working on currently? Yeah, I've got, I'm working on the third book in the Diggory series, which is called The Legacy. And that's about 2/3 of the way done, I would say. And going well. That one's fun. And then I've got a side project that I've been working on for a couple of months that I haven't really talked about too publicly. In my fan club, the Ring family, I kind of brought it up a couple of months ago when I was debating working on it, but it's a co-author project. And that's almost done, but that won't see the light of day for probably 2 or 3 months at least. But that'll be cool. And then once I'm done with The Legacy and the other one, I'll be going back to write the next book in the Adrian series, which is probably either the last book or the second to last book for now. Because I wrote the original first 8, Scott Sigler, baby poop. For the AUD series, I wrote the first 8 books like in a fugue state, where I wrote all 8 novels on the website, the original website, in less than 2 years, and I just burnt out. And I told the story I wanted to tell, even though people still wanted me to write more. And was like, I'm done. Like, I just got to take a break. My brain is just done with this series. And then several years later, when the storyline that became the books 9 and beyond kind of gestated and became real, and I got excited about telling that story. I returned and started writing again at a slower pace rather than trying to like write as fast as I was before, which really burned me out. Also, I had kids at the time, or I started having kids, and it became just impossible to write at that rate because you're just too scatterbrained and too tired and sleep deprived. And turns out I had sleep apnea the whole time. And I don't know if any of you have sleep apnea, but it sucks balls. Makes you really groggy, and you don't think as straight as you ought to. So dealing with that, and then a newborn that didn't sleep. Juniper, as sweet and as kind as she was, my youngest, did not sleep as a kid. She had a tongue tie and a cheek tie, 2 cheek ties, and she had a really, really, really hard time eating when we started to switch to solids. And because she wasn't eating solids, she wasn't sleeping well. And we had like, I had to wake up with her like every hour and a half, 2 hours until she was like a year old. And it was awful. It was awful. And like that year like was awful. Yeah, my CPAP is the bomb. I love that thing. David, you got your wife hooked on the story. Thanks, David. Appreciate that. Tell her I said thank you. John, I think all of everything I've written is on audio. I don't think I have anything that I didn't. Colony of Lies, which is just a novella, I haven't gone to audio with yet because I wanted to do 3 and then bundle it into a book before I did audio, because it seemed kind of stupid to ask people to like shell out a full credit for like an hour and a half long recording. But when I have 3 of them and it's 8 or 9 hours, like okay, that's that's better value. But everything else is on Audible, and everything I have is 1 credit. And the best deal for Audible is for AUD is the omnibus. I have the first 4 books bundled into 1 boxed set on Audible. And that is good. That's as good as it gets, I should say. No, it's going to require a lot of thought. I don't really want to deal with that right now. Also going to require a lot of thought, and I don't want to deal with it right now. It's all this nonsense. David, you're heavy. Yeah, big guys. We're rock. Jonathan, also, are there going to be any more Elmoran books? Highly unlikely. John, highly unlikely. Despite the fact that they are like arguably the favorite thing that I've written, my favorite thing that I've written, it's a really hard sell. And it's kind of a weird dark fantasy steampunk horror kind of mashup, which I love, and it like combines a lot of the things that I love to read about and like movies and stuff like that. But when you're trying to pitch that story, it's really tough to encapsulate it in like a book blurb. So it's hard to advertise. Also, my original covers on it aren't that strong. The book 1 cover is frankly boring and isn't eye-catching at all. And I would need to relaunch at least the first 2 books. The book 3 has really nice art, which I really liked. And I would keep that, I think, or at least keep it as a promotional image. But yeah, the sales on it are just not there. They're just not there. Yeah, if you're on iTunes, yeah. I can't give you a code for iTunes. It has to be through Audible. The codes don't work on iTunes. iTunes doesn't want to give anything away for free. AUD was what brought you. The journal format, David? Is that what you're talking about? The journal format? I'm going to step away. Be right over here. I'll be right back. Continue to ask questions. Bitch. I'm back. Yeah, the diary format, which is, it was awesome to write because it was fun. But a lot of people give me grief about it because it's like, how can you have any suspense when you know he's writing about what already happened? And that's a legitimate thing, which is part of the reason why I like the short stories that are mixed into it can create tension because a lot of them foreshadow. So before you get to read his diary entry about what happened, you get to see the setup for how bad it's going to be for him. So you get nervous. So, you know, that's cool. But I love that format. It does work with an iPad as long as you just have the Audible format. Really, really. I loved writing in the journal format because you can be really unvarnished and imperfect, and you get Adrian as the unreliable narrator. So he sees things and reports those things in the way that he kind of wants to record them. So he embellishes quite a bit. You know, he talks himself up at times, and then he's also quite frank about how he lacks confidence, and it's really fun to play around with that as a trope. Oh, thanks, John. Jim Butcher's awesome. I really like his writing. It's tough because, like, sometimes I can be really, like, for lack of a better word, vague with my foreshadowing. Like, it's so subtle when it's actually being read or listened to that I kind of like miss the mark on it. But the flip side of that is when people go back through and read or listen a second time and they pick up on the fact that I was like laying down some stuff. I had a lot of these. Then you get like this second pass through of the story where you get all of those little things that I was kind of, hinting at really, really subtly. And you can see just how far out some of my setups actually begin. Like John here in the chat is a virgin to the story, so I don't want to ruin everything. But John in the story, in Adrian's, the number 3 is really important. And when people go back through the second time around, long before the concept of the number 3 becoming a part of the story, like a bold part of the story, long before that happens, the number 3 is being important. And when people go back through, they're like, wait a minute. Was this happening the whole time? Yep. And that's really fun because then people are like, they get excited because they're like in on the joke. They saw behind the curtain, the wizard let them in. And I love doing that. I love being able to be with like my readers and my listeners like that, because then it's like, all right, you feel me, you got it, we're cool. And then we get that moment and it's fun and it's awesome. But Jonathan, thank you for the compliment. You mentioned a couple of writers that I'm a big fan of. Brandon Sanderson. So he's like next level gigantic now. He's always been big. Like, I don't think he started out small. I think he started out big. But
now he had that Kickstarter that went, gabillionaire. And I saw a TikTok of him signing books in a warehouse, that they're shipping out, because it's like Loot Crate kind of thing. Like, he just sends you one of his books every so often. And he's literally just standing in front of a table, and a warehouse worker is taking pictures, or taking a video, and one person's putting a book up that's open, and he's just signing it, and then they take it away, and the next person puts a book up and he just signs it. He's not even sitting, he's not personalizing anything, he's just scrolling, and he's having a conversation with someone while he's doing it. And on the one hand, I'm like, damn, that's lame. Right? Like, there's like absolutely nothing personal about that going on. That's kind of crappy. But then it's like, he's probably going to sign 10,000 books. That's awesome. So mixed feelings about that. I'm happy for his success. I'm not begrudging him or shitting on him at all. But as somebody who's, looking up his mountain, his toenail area, I am politely envious of his success. Yeah, Day by Day. Day by Day was solid. I've never actually read the J.L. Bourne books, if you can believe that. Well, these are all foil. Cool. They are not all the same set, though. Break it down. Never read any of the Bourne books. Saw the Bourne movies, never read the books. Those, when I was like really into that kind of book, when I was like a teenager and in my 20s, I read a ton of those books. I thought they were awesome. And then for some reason, I just kind of, I don't think I aged out of them, but I got way more into science fiction at that point, and horror. I've always been a horror guy. Hi, Claudine. So, yeah, like I got out. I used to read a lot of Hunt for Red October. That guy. Used to read a ton of his stuff, and Patterson's got stuff in that vein as well. These are literally all the same. Wowzers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What are the odds of that happening? You would enjoy them. There's Zombie Pucks. Yeah, Day by Day. I know J.L. Bourne. He was breaking big right about the time I started to break big. He probably had like a 6-month lead on me in terms of his career. So he and I have kind of risen up. He got big though. He got signed by Permuted Press back when Permuted Press was good, and then they sold his stuff to Simon and Schuster because he was like their flagship. He was like the best-selling product of theirs by far and away. And Simon and Schuster bought it out, so now he's a big 6 author, which is good for him. I don't know if he's still in the Navy. He was a fighter pilot in the Navy. I think he was like trying to retire or something like that. I forget exactly. John, daughter loves the dry earth. She's kind of a dumpster. Pardon my coughing, everybody. I really want to write the 3rd book of the dry earth. I really, really, really do. Like, it's going to bother me if I don't. BNZ. Like, it's really going to bother me. And plus, they're like relatively short books because they're YA-ish. But if I do write more, I think I want to do like a kind of a soft series relaunch, because it was my first foray into YA. And like calling it YA, it doesn't really do it any justice because it's still my writing. But it's just like less cursing, essentially. It's its own thing. It's just Zendikar. um, so where was I? I launched Dry Earth under a whole new pen name because I really didn't want people reading my YA stuff and then being like, oh, I'll read the rest of his stuff and trying to get their 12-year-old into AUD or Tesser, which is notably more adult. So I used a pen name, and it was my first pen name, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and it did not do a particularly great job of marketing it. And then Audible bought the rights to the first 2 books, and then didn't really do a whole lot with it. They didn't, like, promotionally, they didn't really give it any backing to speak of, which was a bitch. But I mean, it happens. And I was kind of left in the lurch because I couldn't really do anything with it. And I wrote the second book because I was contracted for it out of the trilogy. And then because it didn't sell that great, Audible declined on a third book. They said no thanks, which means if I do it, I have to do it indie. And if I do it, I want to do a soft relaunch and change the authorship from W.J. Orion to Chris Philbrook and W.J. Orion. Because I think if I put my name on it, everybody gets my notification that I have a new release. I think I'll have way more turnout and people will, see it for what it is. It's a good book. It's a fun series. And it's not super YA. I'm not talking about like feelings the whole damn time. There are some feelings, but like it's not teen romance. It's not Twilight. So Fallout's awesome. Tufo's a buddy of mine. We co-wrote books together. I don't know if you knew that. The Bleed series. Us and David Moody. I want to harass Mark to do something again, but he's so busy. Bleed sold pretty well. He and I have been talking about crossing over Fallout and Adrian's for a long time because that's what he does, right? He just brings Talbot everywhere. And we talked about it, but like we can't quite get on a schedule that works because he's like booked out for like 2 years. And I'm completely incompetent as it comes to what am I doing? I'm fucking this all up. Pay attention. Chris, Mr. Dingman, how you doing? The Bleed series was fun. It was a lot of fun to write. It was, from a creative standpoint, it was really fun to work with those guys because they're both so, creative and talented as writers. Getting to like listen, be in the room for the pitches and going back and forth with ideas and like spitballing and coming up with concepts and what we think will work and what not, and then like handing the reins off to them to take a character and you leave them in a moment in the story and then you see what they do. That was just really fun. Just like fun, rejuvenating from a creative standpoint for sure. And David's a talented writer, David Moody. So it was really cool to have a book come out with my name next to his. Mark's as well. Mark's a great writer. He's got a great following too. He's got that stoner crowd on lockdown, I think. Which reminds me, he and I were supposed to get together for a couple of beers. AUD and Fallout would be to die for. I think we'd sell a lot of books. I don't know how we would do it. I don't know what story we could tell because he's got a storyline, I've got a storyline, but perhaps we could meet somewhere in the middle and do something fun. I'm sure we could. He and I haven't actively talked about it in a couple of years, so he might have completely changed his mind. And I'm just talking out of my bunghole, which is quite possible. Dare I say even likely. But that would be fun. He only lives a few hours from me, so hop in the car and go up and hang out. Or he could come down. That would be cool too. 2, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4. Amazed how long he stretched out Fallout. Yeah, he's got his characters so dialed in, and he's got so many people so in love with them that as long as he just keeps kind of like doing that, he'll be able to write forever. I do know that he is hoping at some point soon to be able to write stuff that's different, but Talbot and Company is so successful, it's hard to think about walking away while waiting for ZF11 that you found out about me. Yeah, Mark's been so sweet. He and I met through a podcast that he did with Arman Osamia. I forget what it's called, Armin Hoof, Toof, something like that. They don't do it anymore. But Arman reached out to me, and this is a long time ago, probably 10 years ago, probably. And Arman was like, "Hey, we're doing a show. You want to pop on and bullshit with me and Mark, whatever?" Sure. And we did the podcast together, and Mark and I just jived. Like he and I just like got along real well during the show, and that was it. Like we were just buddies, and then we found out that he doesn't live that far away from me. So then I was like, cool. Or cooler. That's not the right card at all. What am I doing? I'm fucking up again. What did I get? Somebody asked a question. Supposedly Fallout is being made into a TV series. Don't know who's picking it up. Zombie Fallout? Yeah, Mark, it was almost a year ago, exactly. Audible Studios spun up a television production kind of wing to essentially capitalize on all of the audio titles that they put out to, kind of take them and run into the television market with it. And this wing of Audible Studios optioned Zombie Fallout, which, it sounds really cool, but a lot of books are optioned and nothing ever happens. And the last I talked to Mark, they optioned it and nothing's happened. But, I'm happy for him because that's cool. Close knit the Z-Pod guys are. Yeah, we really are. It's a cool crowd. Hey, Ed, Mr. Whiting, how are you, pal? Pardon my scratchy voice. We the Zompok community, Chris, is weird, and I have this conversation like a lot when like a bunch of us get together and we kind of talk about it. But Zompok is this weird bastard child genre because the closest thing that the retailers want to call it is science fiction. They want to call it post-apocalyptic science fiction. And there are so many variations of zombie apocalypse that's not always an accurate label. And in fact, it can be quite off. And zombie stuff is also, when you go to see a zombie movie, you don't say that you're going to see a science fiction movie, right? You usually go to say, I'm going to see a horror movie. I'm going to go see a zombie movie. So the Zompok stuff is like part science fiction, part like occult, because sometimes like there's occult backgrounds to it. Voodoo, spirits of the dead, whatever, Evil Dead, for example. And then it's like horror as well. So it's like 4 or 5 genres that kind of like, it's a weird Venn diagram. And consequently, because it's this weird sort of bastard child genre, we don't really fit in with the other sort of genres of writers. And like we talk about this a lot because like I network a lot with a lot of regular horror writers, people who write, New York Times bestseller, kind of stuff. And these are like, Joe Hill's, Ron Malfi's, Gabino Iglesias, those kind of guys. And they are like pure horror writers, and they don't consider what I write to be horror at all. And that's kind of a bummer because like I kind of consider what I write to be horror, right? There's a lot of horror elements in it. That being said, when I talk to science fiction writers, right, there's a huge variety of science fiction writers. There's like, hard science fiction. There's like your space fantasies, like your Star Wars, with like magical stuff like the Force, whatever. They look at zombie apocalypse stuff and they say, oh, no, that's more horror. That's totally not us. So like we're always getting pushed away from the genres that we kind of infringe on the territory of. So as a result, long story long, a lot of us zombie apocalyptic writers, like it's just us. And nobody wants to hang out with us because we're the weird bastard child that writes shitty horror stories and shitty science fiction stories and da-da-da-da. But we write really good Zombie stories. And the genre catches so much shit, man. If I had $1 for every time I was like, oh, you write zombie stories? Yeah, mostly. Yep. Oh, and that's working out for you? Yeah. Yeah. But, whatever. But that's why I think a lot of us are so close, because like we really kind of have to support each other because it's just us. Like if I have a new release and I'm messaging a big horror writer to share it, they're going to be like, nope. And there's only a few people in the genre that have been able to kind of transcend and like rise above or escape from the Zompoc kind of curse, moniker, whatever you want to call it. Like Jonathan Mayberry is one of the guys that immediately jumps to mind because he's been able to have success outside of the zombie genre with his other books. And I love his writing, and I'm super happy that he's been able to see success writing in other genres. That's like my wet dream. So it's great to see him succeed because it gives me hope that as I write stuff that's outside of the genre, I can also have, similar levels of success, or at least somewhat similar. But like his not Lovecraftian, but his like pulp fantasy stuff, Kagan the Damned, is really good, and those sold really well. And he's got the Joe Ledger series, and he had V Wars, which actually got turned into a TV show for Netflix, and it got a season. Didn't get renewed though. But yeah, like he's got a ton of success, and I know Joe Ledger's optioned as well. So for movies, I think, not TV. But he wrote a ton of zombie stuff, and he writes in other genres. Like he's got serious horror that people take seriously, and he writes science fiction that people take seriously. So the rest of us Zompoc guys are just doing the best we can. Guys and gals. A lot of good female writers too. Sarah Lyons Fleming. I'm gonna have to sort all these, aren't I? Motherfucker. Or I already did, then I'm really cool. So yeah, John, you were asking about TV stuff earlier. Without going too much into the extremely lengthy details of it, for several years, I had a production agreement with a major television producer, and we were really close to getting greenlit before COVID hit. Hey, David. And COVID hit, shut down Hollywood for like 2 years, and he got backburnered for everybody. So he said, all right, we'll regroup after. And then when Hollywood started back up after COVID, they had to kind of like clear the backlog of stuff that they already had in process. So that pushed out even further. And then we had some like people sign on to the project from like a production standpoint. We had another executive producer jump in, like a juggernaut executive producer, which was awesome. And we had like a special effects company signed on, and we had like a bunch of just really great progress. And we had essentially like a locked up deal with Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers Television was like, we had it was a done deal, quote unquote. And we went in for the final meeting to like get the official green light to start like really developing the show. And that was when the Warner Brothers Discovery merger, hey Cynthia, started. And the guy who was running Discovery was taking over Warner Brothers. And that's also HBO. Warner Brothers does all the a lot of the production for HBO TV shows, which was great for me. But anyway, the person who's running Discovery, who was taking over, was basically like, we can't greenlight anything until the merger's over. So sorry. And my juggernaut executive producer, in the interim, who is wildly successful in Hollywood, he is in the interim, he was hired to be the head of DC Studios, co-head of the DC Studios. So now he doesn't have any time left to do anything other than, what he was already working on plus DC. So my regular TV producer, the guy who was going to be showrunner, without the support of the executive producer, basically was like, I don't know like what we're going to be able to do, because if we can't get it sold there by him, like I'm not sure what we're going to do. So we're basically DOA there. And then I just started like calling all my contacts and saying, hey, like we're so close, somebody please. And we got Blumhouse Studios, we had a pitch session with them, and Jason Blum, the guy who runs Blumhouse, was like pretty jazzed about it, and nothing happened with that either. So all of my agreements have expired. I do not have any options sold at the moment. I don't have any representation agreements for the series in place. So everything for TV is dead for now. So it's a very frustrating, sad process, filled with lots of excitement and then crushing despair. So that's been a difficult process to kind of deal with in the background, because I can't really talk about it to people, and like there's really nothing I can do to help, because I'm not in LA and I'm not invited to a lot of these meetings, and a lot of these conversations happen like willy-nilly. You bump into somebody and I can't be there for all of them, and I can't pitch my own project at every opportunity because it's just not reasonable. So tough. That being said, and I've said this before, it's really cool that I got to have that level of success with Hollywood. Like the fact that I almost got a TV show greenlit is awesome. And like there are a bazillion writers who never get that far at all ever. And I feel very fortunate that I got that far and that I had like quite successful people quite interested. But at the end of the day, TV shows, especially ones like, an adaptation of AUD would be, are phenomenally expensive to make. And the expectations are pretty high now with, The Walking Dead being the success that it has been. And, it's like that weird Venn diagram I was bitching about where it's not quite a horror show. It's not quite a science fiction show. So it has this like kind of narrow target audience, relatively speaking. And a lot of the executives say that the genre's played out, like all the stories that can be told have been told, which we know isn't true. But the executives have, blinders on because they are responsible for the checkbook. And these shows are prohibitively expensive to make. When we were talking about a pilot, because you really only get greenlit for the pilot, typically. And you write the pilot script. They look at the pilot script. They say, hey, this is great. We're going to give you more money to actually shoot it and hire, cast and crew. So you need the money to hire the writers and the development team to get to the script portion. So that's like phase one. And then you get the second round of money to actually film the damn thing. And if you want to hire the really high quality actors for the pilot, then you have to shell out big bucks, right, to get quality talent to shoot the pilot, which a lot of pilots are shot with B grade talent. And the shows are actually picked up based on like execution, right? Like not necessarily like the strength of the cast. So lowball hiring, the B team. We were looking at $3 million to spend for the pilot, and we were really looking for $5 to $6 million so we could bring on some talent. So getting anybody to sign off on $5 or $6 million for a maybe is a big ask, What about Netflix? We pitched everybody. And at the time, for Netflix specifically, Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead was coming out, and they were all in on him. And the success of that, relative success, it was highly streamed. It got panned by a lot of people, but it was a fun movie. And then they were working on an animated prequel to it, or sequel. I forget what the animated one was, which got shit canned. And they were like done. Like they had like the entire script. They had the audio done. Like they recorded all the voice cast and everything, and they seized up on it because he moved on to do Rebel Moon. And also Netflix pivoted for their zombie stuff to the Korean market. They started doing all the Korean zombie shows, which are great. And they basically said, like, we're not going to do any more Western zombie stuff. So Netflix has basically dialed it back down to zero and focused on television shows like Stranger Things and Wednesday, which have both been wildly successful for them. So Netflix was a dry well, which is a bummer too, because my showrunner has actually done a couple of shows for Netflix. I think he's executive produced two for Netflix, maybe three. So we had an in, like he could sit down with these people, and they were just like, yeah, we're just not looking for it right now. But Mark is his name, and Mark is still interested and would love to do it, but we don't have a contract right now, and it would be a very secondary thing for him, and I don't have anybody else knocking on my door about it. And I'm in this weird situation as a writer because I don't really need a literary agent anymore, because I have enough of an indie audience that I don't really need like big 6 book contracts, like I don't need that. I do okay by myself, so I don't really have the desire to hunt down a literary agent. But a literary agent can get you a film agent, and then they can get you TV deals and movie deals a hell of a lot easier. But literary agents don't really want anything to do with me because they don't care about the success I've already had. They don't care about that. It just proves that the next thing I write has a chance at being successful. And that's what they care about, the next thing. So even if I were to talk to a literary agent and be like, hey, I need representation so I can get a TV deal, the literary agent will be like, well, what do you got coming out? Like, what are you working on? Because that's the thing they're going to try and sell first, where they make their big money. And like that's like backing up 4 or 5 steps to try and take a step forward. So, and film agents, generally speaking, won't rep anybody unless you have a literary agent already. So, and I've got friends out in LA that are in the industry that, you know, kind of like rep me, and like bring me up in conversations and are like doing the good work on the down low, but they're not agents per se. You know, they're producers and writers and stuff like that. So, but we'll see. You know, we'll see. It could still happen. It could still happen for anything. There have been movie studios who have kind of, you know, knocked on the door and asked what's going on. So that could happen too. I've always said Tessa would make a really fun movie. We'll see if that's the case. And Tessa was a USA Today bestseller. Like that actually hit #1. So it had plenty of legs and continues to sell to this day. Pretty solid stuff. Cynthia, do you think AUD needs to be finished for it to go to screen so you don't get Game of Thrones issues? No. When we were talking about adapting it to the screen, we were looking at the first 8 books as a complete series, and then basically hoping that we got like 3 to 4 seasons to shoot all 8 books, because a lot of stuff we could condense and a lot of stuff we could just skip over because it wasn't super crucial, and a lot of, you know, speaking roles could be condensed, right, to cut down on dialogue and the amount of cast you'd have to hire. And then we would like call it done at book 8 the way I did. And if it was wildly successful and it got picked up for Beyond, then we would be talking about shooting into books 9+. But we were really only hoping to cover the events of books 1 to 8. And because you only ever get 1 season, we needed to encapsulate a lot of what happened up to book like 3 in the first season, because like we needed to get the events of book 3 in, you know, Midnight, specifically the story Midnight, and like the origin of the undead. I don't want to give it away in case there's people who are here who don't know, but we needed to write the series scripts in a way that we were able to do that, because we needed people to be on the hook for the origin story, because that's a big part of what makes AUD so special. So like we would be a third of the way through the 8 books by the end of the first season, but then also like going back in time and like probably doing flashbacks and stuff, like the way the books are actually written, because, you know, he starts writing 3 months after, right? July, August, September. Yeah. So almost 3 months after it all, he starts writing, and then he goes back and tells you what happened those first 3 months, you know, and that takes him another month or 2 to tell that. And then he's current with you. And then a lot of the side fictions go back all the way to day 1, right? So there are side fictions in, I think, book 6 that chronologically take place before the events of book 1. So when you're laying out the series, we have to look at the entire series as a whole and say, all right, well, in the books, we told this as a flashback in book 6 because it makes sense to, but if we're doing the show, we really need to have that show up in the first season, because it's a huge thing to keep people on the hook to get us to season 2, season 3, season 4, whatever, which is a big reason why, you know, you need a writer's room of people who all read the book and who all become familiar with the story and who can pull the threads apart and find all the different things that make it special, and the characters and the scenes and the bits of dialogue where you know, stuff that'll really pop on the screen. But yeah, you know, didn't quite get that far, but we had a whole lot of phone calls, a lot of really great meetings, and it was really exciting. But Is what it is. I'm gonna keep writing books because that's working out pretty good so far. A lot of people are digging them, and you know, I like it. I like doing it. I love writing. I love the hustle of being a writer. I like the travel, and I like meeting people, and I love doing conventions, and I have such an enjoyable process of it that I like doing it. So, who is your dream pick for Adrian? So for the longest time, I couldn't say because we were like actively pursuing these people, and we didn't want to pollute the chances with one person because we were talking about two or three others. But my original number one pick was Ryan Hurst, which is the guy who plays Opie in Sons of Anarchy, and he also did Beta in The Walking Dead. And there was a period in time when he got hired by The Walking Dead where he became off limits, became like the fruits of the poisonous tree. So we had to kind of pivot away from him, even though I still think he would be really good at it. But he needs the beard. I don't know if you've ever seen him with his beard off, but he looks like he's 9. And I met him at a show, and sweet guy, really nice. And he's big, like he's physically a large person. So he would fit the physicality of it well. But after that, my next 3, my number 1 was John Krasinski, the guy who plays Jim in The Office. He also did 24 Hours, and he's the new Clear and Present Danger guy. Tom Clancy novels, Jim. Yeah. Because he's got the sense of humor to carry it. He's got the acting chops. He can do serious. He can do funny. He's big. He's like 6'3", 6'4", might even be taller. And since he got all jacked up for some of those physical roles, he could do like the physical stuff. And he has like the gun training. And he's also local to me. Like he lives in Newton, Mass, which is about 40 minutes away from here. And my wife went to Newton High School, so it would be really cool to have kind of like a local guy do it. But he's like crazy booked out. And he runs a production company with his brother. So like everything that he does, he also executive produces with his brother. So bringing him on as Adrian would have been great because you also bring on the production company. You bring on like staff writers, you get all that crew, and they're already signed on. So John Krasinski was up there. And then Chris Pratt's name got thrown around a little bit, but Chris wasn't big enough. Like he's actually not that big a guy. And there was like a little bit of controversy around him because he like got involved with like the 3 Percenters crowd because of his brother, and like it was like, I'm not sure we want to go after him right now. And again, he's booked up solid, but he's got the chops. He can act. He's funny. He's got the physical sort of acting ability. And the other guy that we were really going after was drawing a complete blank on his name. And I love this guy too. What's his name? Pablo Schreiber. Who was perfect. Like he was big. He's got the tattoos. He's funny. He's got the acting ability. And he's like 6'4". So like he's got enough gravitas. But then he got hired to do the Halo show and kind of got booked up with that. And then he did a couple of movies for like HBO or Hulu or whatever. So he's a busy guy too. But when we were in meetings with it, we had to hunt down an A-list Adrian because the whole show is him, right? And if we shot it even somewhat like the books, the majority of the first season, theoretically he could be alone. Like it would be him. And then like, moments where he would be interacting with people like through flashbacks or depending upon how we shot it. And in order for the series to work, because it's a journey of his development, like a very personal development, we needed a really good actor to be able to carry the role, and having an A-list actor carry the role was even more important. So when we were looking, like, we really had to like pick a really strong Adrian. We couldn't really go with an unknown and get money. Like, studios wouldn't back us. When Opie died, yeah, oh yeah, it was tough, man. Yeah, Chris, it could happen. I'm guardedly optimistic. The fact that we had so much interest twice, like before COVID and then after COVID, is really encouraging. And the books still sell, so I still make a living off of them. So it's not like they're not fading. So as long as my name keeps coming up in conversations in the genre, it's always going to be a possibility. So, but yeah, hopefully I'm working on The Awakening, which is the Third Degree book now. And Degree's been a pretty good performer for me. Not quite AUD numbers, but enough to be worth it to write more. And I was originally aiming for 5 books in his series, but I'm almost done with book 3 right now, and I think it's probably going to be 4. I don't think I'm going to do 5, because I'm further along in the plot that I thought was going to take 5 books than I thought I would be at this point. And I don't want to drag the series out into another book and have it be less than, like, I don't want to just add another book because I can. I would rather write 4 good books than, 3 good ones and 2 mediocre ones. But we'll see. Like, the rest of this book is pretty well mapped out, and then it kind of depends on how the next book goes. But that's kind of the situation I'm in with AUD as well, because I know I've got 1 more, and depending upon how certain parts of the next book go, they could either be like 10 pages of stuff, or it could be 40 pages of stuff, because you never really know exactly how long it's going to take to tell a certain part of a story. Certain conversations you think are only going to be a page or 2, but then they wind up being like 4 or 5 pages, and you only need a couple of conversations like that to blow a book out of proportion, especially if they're good conversations that you don't want to cut. And action scenes take up a lot of page too, because they're dynamic, and from a physical standpoint, dialogue has lots of line returns. So 5,000 words of blocks of exposition might take up 10 pages, but 5,000 words of dialogue would take up like 35 pages, because it's like blah 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 said enter, blah 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 said enter, as opposed to like 30 lines and then enter. So you never know how big a book is going to be. You can plan, you can estimate, you can think, but at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, you look at it and you're like, oh, that was shorter than I thought, or oh, that was longer than I thought. So I always aim for 70 to 80,000 as a minimum. I don't want to write books shorter than that, because it's not good value. And I'm usually able to tell the story I want to tell between 70 and 90. As I've become a more succinct writer and less wordy and more focused, I realized my book lengths were like, I started out at like 95 to 100,000 words, like pretty consistently. And then over the years, I was able to like tell the same story, but like with 5,000 words less, without like being, forever. There was supposed to be more in the phone. Yes, there was. Yeah, I talked about this before you came on, but basically, Audible only bought the rights for the first 2 in the trilogy, because it was a pretty long shot for them, because it was me writing under a pen name in a genre that I had no traction in. And I didn't really do a good job of marketing the pen name, and the books didn't really do anything, despite the fact that they're good. So I was saying earlier that at some point I want to do a soft relaunch on the Dry Earth series and get new art for book 1, at least book 1. Book 2's art's pretty good. And then re-release them as a co-authored project with me and the pen name, which is W.J. Orion. That way, people who are fans of my work had no idea that I put out those 2 books. And to this day, when I talk about it, like, I would say 60% of my fans have no idea that I even wrote them. So if I was able to re-release them and throw my name on them, they would get the dings through, Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Goodreads and all that stuff that I have a new release. And that would give me enough separation so that the people who bought it for the YA purposes wouldn't automatically port over and get disappointed by my less youth-friendly writing. But I definitely want to write the third one. I have it outlined already. It's ready to go. They're quick to write. And my hope is that I can have enough success with the next couple books I write that I can return to the Dry Earth to finish that series, and also return to the Colony Lost series, the Chronicles of Gara, because the book one in that series was really strong, and the people who have read it love it, and it has tremendous reviews. But again, not really marketed that great, and the cover wasn't on genre. So it didn't get the takeoff that I wanted, but I want to tell more in that world because it's an awesome world. But as much as I want to write those books, if I want to be employed writing, I need to write things that I know people will buy, that people will support me. And right now, those titles are AUD and Diggory. And, Tesser's had enough drop off that if I put out another book, there's no real telling how much it'll sell. So that series is kind of, and the Elmoran stuff isn't really there as well. So I have an idea for another series that will probably be developed after AUD comes to a wrap and Diggory comes to a wrap. It'll be post-apocalyptic, I think, because that's like my playground where I'm most popular. And I think the more I can keep my AUD readers dialed into my future products, the better off I am. But I also don't want to just write post-apocalyptic stories for the rest of my life. Like, I want to tell other stories. Cynthia, do you have any other aliases? No. I will have one on the project that's on the side, a third one, a third pen name, because we're going to release a couple of titles completely into the blue to see if they get traction based on the quality of the writing. And if they take off, then we'll do that. Fans will follow good work. I wish that were true, Chris. I really do. But the reality of it is either I'm not putting out good work and they're not porting over, or they just don't, some people follow the author because they love the author, and some people follow the series. And as time goes on, I'm finding that more and more people follow the series. So God doesn't hate Noel. What's that from? Aqua Teen Hunger Force, that quote. God decided I am alive, and that is everyone else's problem. I love my glasses. Thank you. They're crooked. I got to get these fixed. My youngest fucking Jimmy Superfly snooked me the other day, a couple months ago. Messed these frames all up. They like wobble. They don't sit right there. Like they're crooked now. And I just do not want to buy another pair of glasses. But they work good. They're an updated prescription. So, but anyway, yeah, I do want to do the third Dry Earth. I want to do a second Colony Lost. Need to wrap up AUD. I got the Diggory I'm working on, plus one more, maybe two more, probably just one. And then, we'll see. Fix them. I tried. She bent parts that can't be fixed unless I weld new parts. And at that point, it's just easier to just buy more. These frames were cheap. They were only I don't know, $100. We get them from Zenny, I think, the online place. I buy direct. And normally my glasses are $300-400. These were $120, $130. When are you coming to New York? I don't know. That's a great question, Claudine. We, now that we're into the winter, we're not going to be really doing anything. And I'm trying to do lots of local stuff up here in New England because it's just easier to do day shows where, I can get in the car in the morning and, drive to a place and do a show for 4 or 5 hours and then drive home and be home to put the kids to bed.
Anything overnight adds, significant complexity because we still got two littles at home, and it's tough to, leave my wife alone for days on end, which I did for Austin earlier this year, which worked out okay. So that was really encouraging. But I don't have a lot of like support locally in New York. Like I don't really have a big fan base anywhere, except maybe like New York, New Jersey, down in that area. And I don't have any like contact with like bookstores or places to do a signing. But if someone were to invite me or if a store reached out, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Jennifer, you follow authors to every book. Thank you. Thank you. I don't think everybody does, but enough do. Go drive by with the homies. Your glasses are $2. Well, you live in a country where healthcare is helped. And in America, we just say, fuck you. Good luck with your cancer. I mean, they just got to sell a lot of stuff on Redbubble, right? You thought Tufona had ghostwriters? You put out so much content. Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, like I have ADHD, and I was only recently diagnosed like a year or two ago with it. And, when my psychiatrist was like, hey, did anyone ever tell you? I'm like, no, why? And then like they go down the list of like symptoms of ADHD and how you compensate for it to get through to adulthood. And I was never medicated. I was never identified as having ADHD as a kid because I had like really good coping skills. And there are like many, many different features of ADHD that, rise to the surface and can either be a benefit or a hindrance. And for me, one of my greatest benefits and hindrances is hyperfixation. Now, when I'm hyperfixated on something that's beneficial to my life, it's a superpower. I can, if I get a story in my head and I'm jazzed about it, I can churn out thousands of words, quality words daily, and I can write a book in a month, right? If I'm hyperfixated on it. If I'm not hyperfixated on it and I'm stuck on something else that's not super productive, then it becomes an enormous hindrance, which is a huge reason why I don't play video games anymore, because my hyperfixation feature gets locked onto stuff like that very easily. And then I'm looking for any excuse to like break away from doing stuff to go play the game, because that's where I'm getting my dopamine. So I just don't, I don't play video games anymore. But when I'm writing, if I'm feeling a story and I have a great plot line and I'm jazzed, like I can churn out a book in a month. It's really hard now with the kids because they're, getting them ready in the morning and getting them to school and then picking them up and doctor's appointments, and then they're sick and It doesn't leave a whole lot of time. And they don't go anywhere after school really. Like they're just starting to do like after school projects and stuff, but we still got to bring them to that. And it's like I can't really write in the car, so during COVID, you were keeping up with Audible credits. Yeah. COVID was a good time for me. Yeah, COVID helped for me because a lot of people were buying books and reading books, and they had more spare time. And COVID financially was really good for me. And in talking to other authors, it was a good time for them too. And it's definitely dropped off since then. People don't consume at the rate that they were in 2020, 2021. But it's still good. Like it's still solid. I was doing pretty good before, doing really good during, and then doing solid now. So no complaints. But I can't rely on the hope that television or a movie will happen, because it's so fickle and the process can be so drawn out, between like getting interest, selling an option, getting the green light for a pilot, getting it produced, and then seeing if it's a success. And writers and creators don't get
bank really until the show gets to the tail end of the first season and when you get renewed, right? So if you have a hit when you go to sign season 2, that's when you really get paid. So, season 1, they give you pretty good money, but it's not like I can quit my job and stop writing money. It's like, all right, cool. I can pay off a bunch of bills, maybe buy a car, sock some money away in the kids' college fund, deal with the school loans, but it's not going to be like life-changing money. But when season 2 hits, if it ever hits, then when the money happens. But that's years away. Like if I get the call Monday morning, like, hey, somebody wants to buy the option, TV show might not get shot till 2025. And the money wouldn't show up until 2026, 2027. So I can't sit here and hope for TV or a movie to happen because, I got to make money in the meantime. So I need to continue to write stuff that people like to read. And I enjoy writing and come up with ideas for new series that are interesting enough to me that I can hyperfixate on them and write good quality stuff relatively quickly. And, partner with people to do projects that are fun. And, using Kickstarter has been a big help because it allows me to basically take pre-orders ahead of time. So when I'm rolling the dice on a new project like Diggory, my true fans, the people who follow the author, not the series, they can show up ahead of time and, back me before I go in over my head financially on a risk because they just want to support me. So Kickstarter in that regard has been a enormous help financially. Cause like, for example, the Dry Earth series, right? Like I did that one completely out of pocket, right? So I paid for all of the cover art myself. I paid for all of the formatting myself. I paid for all of the editing myself. I paid for proofing myself. I paid for everything, right? And it's not inexpensive. And then I sold the audio rights to Audible and basically broke even at that point, right? Like I got the money back that I put into it. And then I haven't earned out that advance yet. I haven't sold enough to get that back. So I haven't made a dime on it in audio since then. And I think from a print and Kindle standpoint, I maybe sold another $500 worth of books. Maybe. So that was like 6 or 7 months worth of work. And I've made about $500 for the entire length of time. So I essentially worked for probably about $50 a week for that period of time. So now that I have 2 mouths to feed, I have to be really selective with what I feel like I can write. So, hi, Rachel. So, yeah, hopefully I can come up with some ideas that people gravitate to, and hopefully I can continue to use Kickstarter to defray those costs and at least, cover my expenses. So when a book does release, it's like actually making money for me. And I can get special signed and hardcover books and stuff like that into the hands of the people who have been huge supporters of mine for, in many cases, for a very long time. So like you can see right over here, right, this little stack of books right here, right here next to my BB-8. This is the bank. This is a Lego, not the bank. But this stack of hardcovers right here is almost all that I have left out of the 500 or 600 books I ordered right here. The rest sold. So I think I have one more complete set. Yeah, right there. I have another one complete set that nobody wanted. So, but yeah, I mean, like being able to do that on Kickstarter was huge. So no else gonna pay for one. Thanks, buddy. Excited for the future. Thanks, Ricky. I appreciate that. Hopefully I can write some fun stuff, come up with some cool characters and tell some cool stories and get people jazzed and have a good time doing it. I do definitely want to get back into traveling more. Now that the kids are bigger and we have like summers and stuff where they're not working, I want to get back into like doing road trips like I used to do, where, I would do like 3 or 4 days and do a big loop, or, I would fly out to like Vegas and do like a weekend. I want to get back into doing stuff like that because they're not huge money makers because, the cost of travel is big. So I'm not talking about doing it to make money, but I would want to do it because
it's really fun. Like it's so rejuvenating to connect with real people, especially real people from like different areas, and have like honest, awesome conversations and meet like really great people. And it's also like how I meet those people who become like those big supporters, right? Like those are when you meet those people who follow the author instead of the book, because you can sit down and have a conversation. They can meet me and see that I'm a real person and that I'm genuine and that I'm just trying to chase my dreams, and I'm not this, hoity-toity, literary, person who hides behind agents and can't make time for you. Like I'm just a person hustling, like and trying to tell people stories that are entertaining. Cynthia, if you want the set, you're more than welcome to it. They're a couple $100 for a full set. Um, Shipping to Australia is a bitch. It's like, gosh, I forget how much it ends up being, but it's like $140 or $150 just for shipping. And that's cost. Like that's not me marking it up. That's just what they cost, because you have to send it priority to ensure that it gets there with tracking and insurance. So you send it any other way and it gets lost, it's just trash and you lose all your money. But yeah, I did for the Kickstarter. I had 2 sets go to Australia, 3 sets, I think 3 sets, and they all got there safe and sound. So that was awesome. And then a set I sent to New Jersey got lost. But what's funny is that the guy in Jersey just found the set. They didn't deliver it to him. It showed up as delivered. He's like, dude, it ain't here. So I sent him another set as a replacement. And then 4 months later, he sends me an email. He's like, hey, dude, guess what just showed up? So, but he's going to send it back. So then I'll have a second set that I can sell to people, which is great. So, but yeah, it's a trip. And I also got like all the extra swag and stuff too that people are interested in, and going to travel and like hang out with people in persons where a lot of that stuff people are interested in it. It's like the posters, right? Like the posters are hard to market because it's hard to do that, and like it's hard to hold up a poster and take good pictures of it. And like I don't have very good space here. Like I'm literally in a basement right now because the house rent sucks. But when I go to a show and I can lay out the posters on a table and people can be like, oh wow, that looks really cool, then that's when I get the $10. So doing a lot of those shows is a place where I can get those really cool items. So yeah, the Jersey guy, when he said it was missing, like this is a guy who's been a supporter of mine for years, right? Like, and he's been on the level for a long time. So when he's like, dude, it's not here, it's like, shit, he's not lying. Like he's a good guy. Chris Van Note, how about an AUD tabletop game? So we did the Kickstarter RPG for AUD a few weeks ago, and I'm trying to post it live, but the guy who filmed it and recorded it, JB, he recorded it and kind of did some editing on it and then put it up on a Google Drive. And for some reason, it won't let me access the Google Drive. It says that I don't have permission to. And last I talked to him about it, he was trying to figure out what the hell happened with that. But when he gets the video back to me, I can repost it. And it's basically 4 hours, 5 hours of us playing a RPG game set in the AUD universe. But I used a system, a pretty old system, about 20-year-old system from Eden Studios called the Unisystem. And I can't just produce a game using someone else's system because it's not an open license. But if I ever have some really great success, and can kind of take a month to, pursue a passion, it would be really cool to develop a game, because I used to be a game developer. And I have lots of neat ideas about how it could work. But that's a passion project. RPGs or even board games are incredibly expensive to make. They're very art intensive, and paying for quality art from a quality artist is not cheap. And I'm not doing AI art. Everyone steals 3.5. That's true. Pathfinder, the entire Paizo catalog.
it would be cool to be able to develop something. Card game, I don't know. I have lots of ideas. The issue is I don't have a lot of time to see them all through to completion, and I don't have the money to bankroll it, but that's what Kickstarter's for. But anything I did on Kickstarter would have to have a broad enough appeal that I would be able to get more people than just my own audience to like really make it happen. And then you're talking about like the hustle of trying to reach into new markets and all that jazz. But I mean, it would be really cool to have my own game. That would be really fun. When I was a developer and I was working on games that other people were putting out, those were my games, and it was really cool to go to conventions and see people play. And when I worked for the company, I did a lot of the big conventions, Gen Con, Origins, like the really big ones. And one of my jobs was I was the rules arbitrator for the game. So I was the person responsible for making decisions about rules. So there would be a tournament and they would be like, we don't know how to deal with this. And I'd come over and be like, oh, it works like this. And that was the official ruling. And like, if I made a decision like that, I had to go back and edit the rule book to put my new decision in or issue it as errata, which was a lot of fun. I remember I was at a tournament once where someone didn't know I was who I was and didn't know that I had the authority to do that. And I like issued a ruling in their game and they were like, that doesn't make any sense. Like what? That's not how the game works. And the person who was actually running the tournament was like, this is the guy who's literally responsible for all of the rules of the game. And he was pointing at me. And they were like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, like it is my job to decide how the rules work in this game. And if I make a decision, that is then how the game works from now on. And then I can issue a new rule book and just put it out. And they were like, how does that even work? And I was like, okay, so right now for your game, the number 3 doesn't exist and you must re-roll it. And they were like, what? Why? Because I said so, because I can do that. And they're like, really? I'm like, no, I'm just fucking with you. But the point is I can do that. And that was just fun. I don't know if that was funny for them, but it was really funny for me. But seeing people play games that you worked on is a trip. It's just like writing a book, and when you can have like an engaged conversation with somebody who is thoughtful and connected with your writing, that's like amazing. So, and I've always been a gamer, tabletop gamer big time. So it would be cool to be able to take my stories and take them that next level. But again, it is a lot of work and it's time consuming. And I can't do it all. Like I don't have the layout and like art and formatting skills, I don't think. And my wife already has her own job. Although she's very artistic. Like she definitely has like the design sense to do it. She's just too busy, which means I got to bring people in and then I'm hiring people or I'm paying people and it gets expensive. But yeah, it's been a dream of mine. Just like the comic books. Like I wanted to be a comic book writer or a comic book artist, when I was like 6. So being able to dip my toes into the comic industry and try to write some scripts and try to get some books made, that's like, little kid life goals stuff. So, like I worked with Anthony at Dead Man Walking Comics on his Bad Wabbit comic. And, that's not my comic. It wasn't my idea, right? Like that character's not mine. And I was able to help him and, edit the comic and get it to a publishable state and help him learn how to construct stories better and how to design panels and how to make, page flow work and how to design, how a comic book should look. And even though it's not my comic per se, it's a comic that has my name on it, right? Like I worked on it. I put work into it. I can see the things that I can see my influence on how his book turned out. And I'm proud of that. That's really cool, and the fact that I can go into a comic store and, my comic is on the shelf, like that's a big deal for 10-year-old Chris. And I'm still 10-year-old Chris. Like my inner child is like tripping balls that I have a comic book. Even if it's not the one that I wrote and it's not, the way I would have made it exactly. The fact that I participated in that project is a huge life goal. So And that's a big part of why doing this is so soul satisfying, because I've always wanted to be a storyteller. I've always wanted to be a creator. I've always wanted to like travel. I've always wanted to meet people, and I always wanted to talk about stories like this. And the fact that I've somehow managed to weasel my way into it, and it's fun and successful, and I'm able to like take care of my family and provide and be present for my kids. Like I can drop them off at school, I can pick them up from school, and like we didn't have to put them in daycare before they went to school. We were able to work from home and have adjusted schedules. Like that is a gigantic life achievement for me, and it's all thanks to you guys. So thanks. Cynthia, yes, you are my minions. The problem with minions is they can't be trusted, Cynthia. They just can't be. The amount of people who say that they're going to help and then bail or shit comes up is incredible. Like I would say 90% of the time when someone says they're going to do something for me, they wind up not being able to do it. So I have to be very selective with when I ask for help for people. And I have to pay people, because once money is on the line, then you kind of like own their time differently. Whereas if someone's just doing you a favor, they can be like, oh, well, I didn't get around to it. And what are you going to be like? Well, fuck you for not doing the favor you promised me. Like, you don't really have recourse like that. But yeah, it's great to be able to get help from people, and I appreciate it when I can. And it's frustrating when people fall through, but I get it. Building my career is not other people's jobs. It's my job. So, and I'm able to get a lot of help from y'all. So on that note, it is 10:20 and I am getting tired. And if my little baby is going to wake up from her cough, it's probably going to be pretty soon. So I'm going to get upstairs and make sure that I'm nearby for her if she calls for daddy. So thank you, everybody. I hope those of you who popped in and spent some time here got to hear some cool stuff and got to ask some questions and got to watch me do some work and see that I'm a real person and that I'm busting ass and doing my best. And again, I said it, I'll say it again. Thank you for all your help. You people are the reason why I can do what I do, and it's amazing, and I feel fortunate, and y'all are terrific. So take care, everybody. Y'all have a great weekend. Bye-bye.